live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com. This is the Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. Open house today. Absolutely anything you would like to discuss. If you think it's important enough to warrant public debate, in all probability, a lot of other people would agree with you. Excuse me. I want to start with this question. What's your opinion concerning the residential school issue? Those schools were closed in 1997 by Jean Chrétien. In 2007, Harper apologized on behalf of the Canadian people. The apology was accepted. Trudeau today is shipping hundreds of millions in compensation to the families of some of those affected. A delegation of Indigenous people is in Rome right now meeting with the Pope. The expectation is the Pope will apologize on behalf of the Catholic Church. So, in your opinion, do we have more responsibility? What other responsibilities do you think we have? Are you satisfied with the manner in which Canada has dealt with this? Or do we still need to do more? What else do you think we should do? And I'd just like to point out that a lot of bad things happened in those schools, no question about it. And I'm not trying to make any excuses, but a lot of bad things happened in a lot of places with children in those days. The residential school system in Ireland, for example, with Christian kids, terrible. Children were abused, starved to death, sexually assaulted. And a good deal of that happened in Britain as well. The Mount Cashel experience here in Canada. So what I'm saying is that we dealt differently with children back in those days. Although, in honesty, I mean, they weren't shut down until 1997 by Jean Chrétien, who, Chrétien, amazingly enough, said that he had never heard any complaints. Very clearly, some bad things happened. But how far do we take this? Has the time come to, if the Pope apologized, to close the door, we ship off millions of dollars to close the door and move on? I think there becomes a point when maybe it's even beneficial for those affected to finally say that's enough. Let's move on. Let's get on with our lives. But you may feel differently. The lines are there. The texts are there for you. Are you satisfied with what we have done in this country? Do you think we should do more? What more do you think we could and should do? Now, on another topic, I begin to wonder if our city council is capable of making common sense decisions, or if it is becoming blinded by ideology. Let me explain. Let us be very honest here, okay, just for the hell of it. The only reason that we have light rail and all of its problems is because it was believed that this would be better for the environment, better than the buses. Otherwise, I mean, it makes no sense to replace, at great expense, a perfectly fine bus system to run trains essentially along some of the same routes. It just doesn't make any business sense. It doesn't make any common sense, unless we felt that this would improve the environment. Whether it does is not relevant. This was the decision made by council. In other words, we have light rail and all of the problems and all of the billions of dollars in costs for purely ideological reasons. Not good business, that's for sure. Likewise, we're spending many $millions extra to replace our diesel buses with electric ones, even though we don't know if they'll work in this climate. An electrical bus costs almost double what a regular bus costs. Doesn't provide any better service, but it's electric, supposedly better for the environment. Pure ideology. Once again, spending millions for pure ideological reasons. Now, let's take this current issue of dumps. Could we please talk about dumps? And don't give me this business. about landfills, the polite phraseology. These are dumps. Dumps. Ottawa is a great place for a dump. We've got several. And when they say it's a landfill, excuse me, I don't know what it's like at the other dumps, but the Carp Road dump, I drive by it almost every day. It does a hell of a lot more than fill the land. It has a mountain. In fact, it's a small mountain that you can see when you hit the Queensway driving out to Canada, for example. You see this great big mountain. They say, now, when I tell people, you know what, that's all garbage. Nobody believes me, but it's true. It's so don't call them land. They're dumps. And one of the problems is apparently the dumps are getting full and they don't, city council and its infinite wisdom has no idea what to do. Where are we going to dump our garbage? And the answer stares normal people in the face and has for many years. It is called high efficiency incineration. This has been used with great success in almost every European country for decades now. Sweden, for example, has a law that says it's illegal to dump garbage on the ground. All of its garbage is burned. As a matter of fact, it produces a good chunk of Sweden's electricity. And it's the same thing in Norway. And in fact, in Sweden and in Denmark, high efficiency incineration is so common that some of the larger buildings, particularly government buildings, have their own incinerator and they burn it and it produces enough electricity to power that particular building. I think that here in Ottawa, somehow or other, and city councilors, if they spend a little time researching, but I think they got confused with Plasco. Blasco came in here and with a great wild idea. Fortunately, it didn't cost the city anything, but it was not a success. But Plasco has nothing to do with incineration. It's a totally different idea, revolutionary, and it didn't work. Incineration, high efficiency incineration, has been around for 30, 40 years. Very, very effective. And it's clean, no emissions from it, no odor. As a matter of fact, and I've pointed this out many times before, if you have ever driven on Highway 407, the road just north of Toronto, you drive right by a huge high efficiency incinerator. You don't know because there's no smokestack. There's no odor. It's clean. The only residual from these incinerators is a granular kind of metal, which is used to strengthen asphalt. A number of years ago, excuse me, a diplomat from Sweden came here and he told us exactly the size that we needed. He came from a town in Sweden about the same size as Ottawa. And he said the one we have there works fine, would handle all of your garbage, and would pay for itself in 10 years. So if we'd listened to them, we would have we already would have any problem with dumps. We'd have a high efficiency incinerator, clean, odor free. And one of the great things about it, it's good for the environment. And yet it's the environmentalists, pure ideology, that put a stop to these things. You know why? I have talked to some of these environmentalists. Well, they don't want it because they fear that if we burn our garbage, that it's going to stop us recycling. Oh well, we got to cut down on plastics, etc. And if we burn it, there'll be no incentive then to cut down on this stuff. The problem is that they're not thinking because incineration is the best form of recycling. You are recycling garbage into electricity, desperately needed electricity. But our city council won't even talk about it. They pretend that they don't know what the answer is. Vancouver has a huge incinerator. Toronto has one. There is one just the size of Toronto. And as I say, throughout Europe, they almost every Europe, particularly in Scandinavia, they burn garbage. It helps the environment. It helps them reach some of their emission goals, but not here in Ottawa. I have no idea what 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 we can do to convince them. The one person that really disappoints me is Eli El Shantiri. Now I like Eli; he's my counselor, but Eli was one member of council who is still there that actually took a trip to Sweden, examined the system there, came back very enthused. At the time, waste management was told by council to prepare a plan and costing for high efficiency incineration, but it was never followed up, and Eli seems to have forgotten. It's it is unbelievable. It's pure ideology that we don't have. But and so, what are we going to do? We're going to do with our garbage what we've done all along, what they did in medieval England: dump the garbage in the center of our cities. You may have some thoughts on that. Now, tomorrow morning, as you know, and I'm sure you welcome this, the cost of gasoline will go up about another 9 cents a liter, thanks to Trudeau's carbon tax. Despite what runaway inflation, all of the other problems we've got, wars, et cetera, he demands that he at least postpone. No way. The carbon tax goes on tomorrow. Not only on gasoline, it goes on diesel fuel and it goes on heating fuel, natural gas as well, which means everything is going to go up again. Food, etc. It's really striking the agricultural industry very, very hard, which is one of the reasons why the cost of food is skyrocketing. It's not just the fuel that they burn in their tractors and combines. The cost of fertilizer, for example, is just skyrocketed. The chemicals is just skyrocketed. One of the reasons is the carbon tax. So my feeling is this, and I'd like your opinion. A lot of people voted for this. If you voted Liberal, if you voted NDP, if you voted Green Party in the last election, you voted for carbon tax. So my opinion is that in good conscience, you should pay the carbon tax, but the rest of us, we shouldn't have to pay. I don't know how we accomplish this, but it seems to me that if those who voted Liberal, NDP, and Green had any conscience whatsoever, they would admit that this is their fault. They voted for it, so they should pay for it. If that means that they have to pay double where we pay none, fine with me. How about you? John, any response to this point?
Yeah, we do. Can I throw a little fuel on that fire, please?
Absolutely.
Regarding OC Transpo, hey, I mean, tomorrow the carbon tax goes up for drivers. May 1st, guess what else goes up? Your bus pass.
Oh, the bus pass.
Yes, a 2.5% increase to ride OC Transpo, where ridership is down 41%. Nothing says take the bus like charging me more to take the bus.
I want to remind you that while the main purpose of light rail was the environment, it was ideology, they also promised that this would greatly increase ridership, that people would much prefer to take the train than take the bus. Well, I mean, there are other factors. I grant you that. A lot of people aren't working downtown. But the fact of the matter is, folks, no matter which way you slice it, not nearly as many people are taking the train as used to take the bus. Go ahead, John.
Now, the pandemic put a curveball in that, obviously. But here we go with the comments on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter, and, of course, 613-413-2217. We invite your calls and your texts, and thank you for sharing on whatever social media feed you are on. You are the only advertising and the best advertising we've got. Carrie says apologies not enough regarding the school situation. They should be charged for the crimes they committed and be legally processed.
Most of the people who committed the crimes are long dead. I don't know how we would go about that. Go ahead. Okay.
Joshua says we were willing to tax only non-vaxxers. There must be a way to tax only those who voted for carbon tax.
Well, it would seem to me that if you voted Liberal NDP, you have a superior conscience. You're the woke people. You're much more aware of morality and so forth. You walk the high road. We conservatives, we walk the low road. So walking the high road means that you should accept the responsibility. We've accepted responsibility for residential schools. You, Liberal, NDP, Green, you should accept responsibility for carbon tax, and you should freaking well pay for it. It's my feeling. Go ahead, John.
Couple of comments back to back here regarding OC Transpo. Julie on Twitch says, I would rather take a toy train I built myself than trust transit in this city. And James follows up with, how can you ride the LRT when it doesn't work? Here you go.
Well, it works sometimes.
Sometimes.
It's like the windmills. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
It's like the government. No, never mind. No. I look forward to
Good
your
point.
emails. Let's go to
Good
text
point.
613-413-2217. Lowell, for the record, I think the carbon tax is a money grab that is useless to stop carbon emissions. Let's go over to Maggie. She says, release the names of nuns and priests involved for those living can be charged, and full list of names and children and where they were buried or put in the furnace, including the priest's babies. Chris says, Lowell, it depends on when the murder of those children occurred, and I'm not sure we have the concrete answers on that. If the perpetrators remain alive, the final step is to bring them to justice. There's no statute of limitations on murder. I feel like the apologies and financial compensation is done. The final resolution is holding those responsible if they still walk amongst us.
Okay.
Joshua says, no matter the area, there have been mistakes. There was a time many people with disabilities, mostly mental, sometimes physical, were often institutionalized. I have a disability. I don't expect an apology. Don't need one. What we need is to do better today and in the future. That makes a real difference.
My feeling is that you can only be a victim for so long, because there comes a point when your victim, being a victim makes you a victim. That you are incapable or unwilling to get up. My feeling is that, okay, we've got the apologies, we've got the money going out. I don't disagree that if there are some people still living who committed a crime, they should be charged. I don't doubt that whatsoever. But I think most of those people are long gone now. But I just feel that it's time for everybody to get on. I think that Native people would be better themselves if they put it. Okay, the apology is there, the money is there. Let's move on. Let's move on with our lives. Improve our lives today. History is history. It's gone. It's done. Today is today, and tomorrow is hopefully hope. Go ahead, John.
When there was a tuberculosis outbreak, how is it criminal to bury the affected dead right away? It is a mistake that no records were kept to identify the dead, says Barry via text. Let's go to Valda. She says, this is why history is so important, so it doesn't ever happen again. I really don't know what else can be done. Patricia says, the problem with the buses downtown was that the cars ended stopped in the middle of the intersections at red lights trying to get through it. The buses would need to wait until the way was clear, only to get stopped at the next intersection. The timing of the lights was all
Yeah,
wrong.
just keep in mind that Andy Hayden and Lowell Green, what we were talking about the only people who were very hesitant about the light rail, was go ahead with the transit, with the tunnel. We need the tunnel, no question. Get some of that traffic out of the downtown core, but put buses, electric buses, if necessary, through the tunnel. I still feel it was a terrible mistake. We have ripped up one of the finest bus systems in order to run trains essentially over the same routes. You come along on 417 Queensway, and you look to the north, and you'll see where they're building this is where the new route is going, and essentially it just follows the route of the buses. So all we were doing, spending billions of dollars to replace buses, which worked fine, with trains. I mean, you used to be able to get on a bus here, bus 95 in Canada, and you could take you right downtown. Now you can't do that, except on days when the train's not running. Go ahead, John.
It's 19 minutes into the show. Let's get a word in for Shields, shall
For
we?
Shields, yes. Well, I'll tell you who's still there, and yeah, if you're really good in the Ottawa Valley in particular, where everybody knows you. I mean, even Ottawa is a pretty small town in many ways. People know if the service is not good, the prices aren't right, if the people aren't dealing with you correctly, you're not going to stay in business. Shields has stayed in business since 1947, same family. Main reason, they do business the right way. Very fair pricing. They've got a huge warehouse, all of the brand names, different price ranges, different sizes, different colors, even different wattages on many of the appliances. It's all there, all very carefully screened for you on the internet, on the website, I'm sorry, shields.ca, SCHEELS.ca. Canadian. Shop Canadian if you can. And here you can. Thanks, John.
No problem. Let's go to email, Lowell@blasttheradio.com. Lowell, people have been brought up being told what to think, not how to think. They've been conditioned to be politically correct, so don't know how to make decisions on anything, fearing more of making a fool of themselves and piss people off than use common sense and doing the right thing by the majority.
He's got a very good, it's got a point. The fact of the matter is we sometimes forget we have been bombarded with information, some of it propaganda, about global warming for more than 20 years now. More than 20 years, this is what we've been pounded. The planet is burning up. We've got to stop emissions. We've only got another 7 years. We got another 7 hours. The Arctic ice is all melting. Antarctica will soon disappear. The polar bears will be gone. This has been pounded into us for more than 20 years. So I guess it's small wonder that many people, particularly those who get the power, say, "Geez, for 20 years, I've grown up with this information. We'd better do something." But I just remind you, folks, we've been warned now for 20, 25 years that we got it, that we only have a few more years. That's, a lot of people, a lot of people today listening to this show today weren't born when they started warning us about global warming. Go ahead, John.
All right, let's go to Twitch. James says, if you can cremate a human, there is no reason you cannot burn garbage properly.
Well, no,
I like that analogy very much, James.
It's not. We're not reinventing the wheel here. This is very common. In fact, Europe can't believe that we're not burning our garbage here. They just shake their heads. What do you mean you're just dumping garbage on the ground? Why would you do that? Don't forget that the garbage, there's emissions from that, CO2 emissions from rotting garbage. But if you burn it high efficiency, there are no emissions. If you want to reach some emission goal, one of the ways to do it is install an incinerator. It's here we go again. It's a kind of madness. No common sense and no business sense. Go ahead, John.
And you'd think with all the push for green energy, people would be looking at that, but I digress. Murray's on Facebook. He says it's nice to see people waking up to the fact that governments are not working for you, nor do they care. All right, Jennifer says, my opinion is not popular, but I ask, when will it ever be enough? Give those directly affected an apology, yes, but giving money from hardworking taxpayers has never taught government a lesson.
Well, I just point out that in 2007, Stephen Harper, Prime Minister, did issue a formal apology to Native Canadians on behalf of the Canadian people, and that apology was accepted. So this country has apologized. Go ahead, John.
I mean, once you accept an apology, does that not mean it's over and done with? Let's move on. We've agreed to that. That's kind of the deal, right?
We have found what we think may be some more body or grave.
Sure.
And so I don't begrudge sending out some compensation to the families, and I certainly agree that if we can find people responsible, charge them. But nonetheless, it's time, I believe, to get on. Go ahead, John.
Let's go to Anne. She says, I don't know that we will ever know the causes of these deaths, but an apology from the Pope and a proper burial is in order. Chris says, I think that until all the remains are recovered and returned to their families for proper burial, this will not be over. I would certainly want to have my child back for a proper service and burial. Stephen says, doesn't garbage create methane gas? Could we not use that? Mike says, I heard they can dig holes in landfill and collect methane gas and turn that into electricity.
Well, I suppose they could. As you know, a number of years ago, I raised so much hell that they finally stopped the stink from the Carp Mountain. It was so bad. There's a red light there that if you couldn't hold your breath for the red light, I mean, the stink was terrible. It was terrible. So I raised so much hell, and a couple of other people joined me. So what they did, they put holes down there, put pipes, and the methane, they just burn it. They light fire to it. So, I mean, we won't have high efficiency incineration, which would create electricity, but we allow them to burn the methane. You drive by there at night and there's flares all over the place. They're burning the methane. I mean, it's crazy. Go ahead, John.
It's hard to not like Carp Mountain. I mean, it's a beautiful place to put a Christmas decoration every year. You got a little Santa Claus reindeer on top of it. It's lovely. I don't know why you people in Carp are so upset by it.
No, but I mean, the idea that, with no problem putting pipes and lighting fire to the methane and have that burn up into the atmosphere, that's fine. But have a high efficiency incinerator where there are no emissions? Oh, no, we can't have that. Go ahead, John.
It's quite the conversation. Anne says, fast forward 50 to 100 years, and we, not me, will be discussing what we're going to do with all the hazardous waste from solar farms, wind turbines, and electronic batteries.
I raised this issue yesterday.
Yeah, you did.
Trudeau says that by the year 2035, 100% of all vehicles in this country will be battery. So that's 5-6 million of those huge batteries. What we do with them, I don't know. But the environmentalists, they just shut their minds to the problems here. Go ahead.
To Facebook, Kathy says, who in the future is going to apologize to Canadians for what the Trudeau Liberals and the NDP are doing to us? Lisa is on Facebook as well. She says, Trudeau is unstoppable now that Singh and he have joined at the hip. Pardon me. I've officially lost hope in the fight against the ideology and hypocrisy of these men. We have 3 more years of this dumb fuckery. Ooh. There's a big word. Lisa likes when we swear, so she's encouraging that behavior, apparently. Mark says,
I'm going to tell you, after they pass Bill C-11, you won't be allowed to use that word.
Won't be allowed to use any words.
No F-bombs anymore. The government will stop you. Go ahead.
Get them in while you can, Lisa. And in fairness, she left the C out of the word. I went ahead and read it. Mark says, now that Patrick Moore has come off the green wagon, he is now being vilified. Lisa's having a good chuckle at us. Here's a text, 613-413-2217. The liquid affluent that is in the ground at the Trail Road dump has to be put in tanker trailers and taken to the city sewage plant at Greens Creek to be processed. So what city tax covers that expense?
It's unbelievable that in the year of our Lord, 2022, with incinerators having been used 20, 30 years, highly successful, including right here in Canada, that our city council won't even talk about it. It is astonishing. I mean, it seems to me that city council is just absolutely devoid of any sort of reasonable thought. Go ahead.
Our friend F-Bomb Lisa says she backs the incinerator concept, by the way.
I hope so.
Yeah, and David says Carp Mountain does have a generator powered by the methane that supplies power to the grid. Interesting.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, that's all the comments we've got on this show today, Lowell.
Well, then we're going to sign her off a little bit early. I have an appointment, so want to thank you all. And just don't forget, folks, I hope you enjoy the gas pump tomorrow morning. Thank you, Justin Trudeau. Thank you, Jagmeet Singh. And thank you, Green Party. The price of virtually everything goes up very shortly. I hope you enjoy it. We'll be back, CFRA.
BlastTheRadio.com, actually.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at BlastTheRadio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of BlastTheRadio.com.